The only place where you can get the hard-hitting truths, like the fact that we're all grots just sitting on objectives in this miniature war game known as life. The podcast known as
Trapped Under Plastic. The podcast that is currently under investigation on suspicion of being a front for a meth lab. Don't look at my teeth.
Don't. Also, the giant boxes of Sudafed in the corner.
Wait, you can make meth from Sudafed? I never watched Breaking Bad. Is that a meth show?
Yes, they make meth
with Sudafed.
I don't know if they use Sudafed. Like that used to be the thing in the early years of meth. I don't know if it's still a thing or not. It's still like, yeah, you use like fertilizer, industrial strength fertilizer, and I think there's probably like pop rocks in there too. I'm not exactly sure.
Did you watch that show ever?
I did, but I never made it all the way through.
Okay.
Like, it's good. It's one of those, like, the first couple seasons, you're like, fuck yeah. But then it's also one of those, I kind of can start seeing through the matrix when it comes to a lot of TV dramas when they go on too many seasons. Mm-hmm. When you're like, oh, they told this really fun, succinct story, and they should have stopped it at like 3 seasons. And now we're on season 6.
Yeah. So I feel the way about Stranger Things a little bit. I feel like maybe season 2, maybe season 3 got a little bit like, okay, you had a great formula. The fact that it keeps happening over and over again is a little ridiculous. But I didn't watch season 4, and I heard that was pretty freaking cool.
Yes. 4 is, in my opinion, the best season since 1.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I should definitely watch it.
Yes. It's really good.
Yeah, because for that one scene.
It was like, yeah. You got to play Metallica in hell.
Absolutely. Dude. That's fucking epic.
But it was like season 4 to me. This is a podcast about TV shows.
Yeah.
Is that they realized, they had the self-realization that they were doing that shit, and they're like, fuck this, we're turning it on its head, we're doing it completely different. What you think it's going to be, it's not going to be. And so it's really good. So okay. I'm pumped for it. Season 5 is coming out. I think it starts sometime in the summer. I mean, but season 4 has been out for like over a year, I think. So.
Yeah, it's been a while. I didn't know they keep going. All right, out of the Preamble Ramble. I'm going strong in my Jaws of the Lion campaign. We just finished scenario number 7, and I kind of am realizing something about the way that we're playing it. We play it like once every 3 weeks, and what we're discovering is that none of us can remember the narrative, like what we're doing or what's going on.
Oh no! And
so we kind of just go into the scenario and we play the game, which means we're only really enjoying it for the mechanics of the game, which are good. They're really good. But I feel like it's obviously missing something. I'm getting a little bit, I kind of get the feeling that I'm kind of going through the motions. And I feel like the best way to play that game is how you play those games, which is like once a week where you can like remember maybe what's going on. Or do you not give a shit about the narrative in a game like that?
We do. I think as a DM, someone that's running the game, the narrative, the overarching narrative, so you have like this high level story, this thing that's happening. And in many ways, I remove the things that the characters are doing from that story. So like if you didn't exist, the world and the city you live in would still go, right? It would still do its thing, but you interacting with that world can kind of make micro changes. And sometimes those pebbles add up to a dam in the river over time. So what I like to do is I like to think about and plan out the high level story. These are the big things that the big baddies are doing. These are the things that the good guys are doing. This is the ahead that it's going to come to. And then when it comes to what the players do, I want them to experience that at their own pace, bring in information from the characters in the world and from the world itself, and let them go down the path of investigation or intrigue that excites them the most. So don't guide them in a specific way. Let them see it and then let them dig in where they want to. And then I get to have the fun of figuring out, based on what they're trying to do, how that'll affect everything else. So I don't need it all figured out. I don't need to have all the details done. But I know in the top of my head the elevator pitch of the story.
Okay, hold on. I'm asking about Oathsworn.
I thought you were talking about Star Wars.
No. I'm playing Jaws of the Lion, and we don't play it often enough, and we are...
Jaws of the Lion was Star Wars.
We're forgetting the story that's part of the board game that's like being shared. And so do you give a shit about the Oathsworn story? Also, there's a gigantic creepy crawly on the ground right now, and I have to go assassinate it.
Is it a centipede?
Yeah.
Kill it.
I'm going to kill it!
Yeah, the thing is that the RPG board games is they're kind of story light. Oh man, that fucker can move. Dude, we lost him. We lost him. And if you move that, You move that dog bed, their whole hive is going to come out after you.
Yeah, just keep an eye on your right flank there, brother.
All right, I'll hit it with my phone. Yeah, it's tough, especially like, and I actually think Oathsworn does a really good job of like keeping the story pretty basic. Oh, they're pulling down the blanket now. They're mad. Oathsworn does a pretty good job of keeping the story pretty high level, and you're mercenaries, and this is just kind of the badass thing you do, and you're just kind of picking stuff up as you see it. But like, I don't think you need to connect one thing to the next too deeply.
Okay, yeah. I just feel like, so basically every time you play Jaws of the Lion, you get like a solo objective, and it gets you a check mark. Mm-hmm. And then every 3 check marks, you get a perk. And a perk is like, I get to remove, like, do you know how Jaws of the Lion works? Or do you know how Gloomhaven works?
Yeah.
You have a deck of cards that you draw things from to see what the effect is.
Yeah.
So a perk is like you improving your deck.
Okay.
Like putting better cards in, taking worse cards out. And basically that happens once every 3 sessions.
Okay. And
then beyond that, you level up maybe once every 2 to 4 sessions, depending on like what level you are. And so that's the amount of progression happening in the game, which is, it's not very often. And so it can tend to feel like if you just play the game for the mechanics, it gets a little bit stale. That's kind of how it's feeling right now. So there's not a whole lot of progression with the character mechanically, and the scenarios kind of feel a little bit similar, a little bit kind of the same. Like the first 5 introduced a new thing every single time you played because it was introduced in the game. Uh-huh. And that felt like really interesting and fun. And now that we're kind of past that, kind of feels a little same.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't think that's a you problem. I think it's a game problem.
Okay.
I think your game has to be, and this is one thing that I keep going back to Oathsworn, but you played Oathsworn.
Yeah, it was good.
Oathsworn does not, we're level 6 or 7 now, level 7.
Fucking hey, nice.
And there's like 20 some, low 20s total number of missions in the campaign. And why it's so good is that every single boss fight feels epic and completely different, and you've got to figure out how you're going to approach it with your resources based on your group makeup, based on the kinds of skills you have, based on the mechanics of what's going on, how you can kind of mitigate and all this kinds of things. Like there's a lot of discussion while you're going that's really, really fun. So, and I think Gloomhaven was the same way. Like the crunchy part of your game, if you're doing an RPG campaign board game, has got to be fine-tuned.
And it kind of is. It just feels like it's not changing a whole lot. Also, on the note of boss fights, we fought our very first boss last session. It was called a Blood Tumor. And it was cool. It had a different mechanic. And the very next scenario, like we had 2 options to go to. And it was the exact same boss fight. It was another tumor with the same set of rules and the same way it worked. And we had improved since that last scenario. And we just fucking annihilated it. Like it wasn't even a challenge. How many boss fights do you get? Like what, one per 3 scenarios, or once every scenario, or
in Oathsworn?
Yeah,
every fight in Oathsworn is a boss fight.
That's so fucking epic.
It's fucking epic.
That's so epic. I feel like so far what we've been doing is just clearing mobs largely, and we've had 1 boss fight in 7 scenarios.
And my issue with most of the RPG board games that we've played comes down to the grind that happens with too many bullshit, like regular crap fights.
Yeah.
You kind of get to you play through all the stuff so much that it becomes the same because not as much of it has changed. So you're relying an awful lot on evolution of your characters growing really continually for that to not feel stale.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you have every fight is a boss fight, then it's like it has an extra weight to it. It's so much more complex. They're not supposed to be rushed through mindlessly. You're supposed to kind of figure things out in as you go, and approach them differently. Utilize your characters in different ways. Like we have an archer, and she's super good, obviously, at range shot and does multi-shot. So she can, some fights, she's really good at like picking off minions that basically have 1 hit point, so she can kill 2 in a round if she hits, which is really valuable. But the other cool thing is she can move really far, and there are certain missions that you have to like save civilians. And so she can plink a shot and then run over there and save a civilian, while our melee guys, you can't really do all that and still get your damage in. So it's really fun. I don't know.
It sounds fun.
I have enjoyed this game probably more than any of the campaign RPG board games we've played thus far.
Okay. I might give it a shot. They actually sent me a copy of the board game, so I want to give it a shot once we're done with Jaws of the Lion here.
You absolutely should. I think you really dig it. And I said too, like that game, it was like the second or third mission. I sacrificed my character. I killed my character because that was we could either have somebody stay back and hold off this thing that was destroying the town entirely while we're trying to save the civilians, or we could try to do our best to escape it and just let it kill everyone that was still in town. So I was playing the giant polar bear, and I was like, it's been good, guys. And I run back into the town.
You superheroed it, dude?
Yeah.
You Tony Starked it? You went into the galaxy and took the nuke with you?
Yeah. I was Bruce Willis from Armageddon. Where I stayed on the meteor. But that was just like, whoa, we did not see that coming. That was cool. Then it's like I got to figure out pick a new character to play and everything. But it's just R.I.P. Fippy.
Yeah. All right, that's my first Preamble Ramble. I'm going toe-to-toe with you on Preamble Ramble items this episode.
I fucking love it. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about Jerry and Marge. So we got a lot of wetness and rain this spring.
You should have stopped there. We got a lot of wetness.
We got a lot of wetness and rain. And when we get that in my neighborhood, then Jerry and Marge come back. And Jerry and Marge are obviously ducks. And they live in the neighborhood. They chill. They hang out in people's yards. There's like an old, kind of like a quarry back halfway down the hill where my daughter and I go get tadpoles and stuff. And that's really chill when we got enough rain where they can hang out in the pond. And every day I see them when I'm out walking the dog. Say hi to them. They're waddling around. I haven't seen any babies yet, but I think that if they have babies, I might be able to convince them to let me be a godfather, and then I can start my duck army. This is the beginnings.
But you're going to do it with religion. Your godfather.
Yes, okay. I am the godfather. Emphasis on the god.
Right, yeah. Duck god.
Yes, so soon all ducks will worship me, and we'll be able to rise up.
Don't ducks have barbed dicks?
I guess I could ask Jerry. I mean, I don't.
Maybe you should ask Marge.
She would be more sensitive to that, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had no idea what
fucking Google that
Jerry and Marge was about.
This is one of our main weapons for our army.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I don't like that.
Just dive bomb dick first into the enemies. Yeah. So yeah, I want to tell you all about Jerry Marsh. And also, I'm bringing Baja Blast Mountain Dew in a can today. Baja Blast Zero. This is a monumental day. If you didn't know that they make Mountain Dew Baja Blast Zero now, consider yourself warned.
And it's in a can. You're not going to go to T-Bell to get it.
I know. And you know what's funny, too? Like, when you have it outside of, like, eating it with Doritos Locos Taco, it's not as good. You know, something about that combo of just, you're leaning into being a slob.
Yeah.
That just makes everything taste better.
Yeah, it needs it for context. That's what you need it for.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, like, if I just eat something that's got sawdust in it while I drink this, it makes it taste better.
Oh, okay. You saying that Taco Bell tacos have sawdust in them?
Yeah, there was a study sometime, this might just be bullshit on the internet, that like a sizable percentage of the meat in Taco Bell meat is not actually meat. It's like the same thing that, did you know that like Parmesan cheese in the grocery store that's in like the can, like the craft can, like that's not actual cheese?
It's not.
No, it's not.
I mean, I used to use that a lot, but I don't use it anymore. But it kind of hits a spot for me.
It does. Yeah, you put it on like a greasy pizza that you threw in the oven or something. Mm-hmm. It does a job, but like,
Okay. I finished Dune.
The book?
The book, yeah.
All right.
All 600 pages of it. Really enjoyed it. I'm on to Dune Messiah now, about 100 pages into that. That's a much shorter book. I'm almost 1/3 done with that book, basically.
Man, look at you. Fucking Stephen Hawking over here.
But it's really good. I'm really enjoying Messiah as well. We get introduced to a new house or a new, I don't know what it is, if it's a house, but they're called the Tleilax. The race is called Tleilaxu. They're called face dancers. They're flesh crafters.
Oh, Jesus.
They can there's a thing in the Dune universe called a Gola, which is like you take someone like Duncan Idaho, who died and still has all their muscles and all their skills and their brain, and you reanimate them to take advantage of all those like built-in natural physical skills and strength that he has, but the personality is gone, the humanity is gone, and it's like a shroud of a human being.
It's like Frankenstein's monster,
Kinda, yeah. And so like that's their whole deal. And that's super dark and evil, and I love that.
Do they have a cool aesthetic? Does he describe the aesthetic of what they look like at all?
No, they're like kind of shapeshifters as well, and so like they can change a lot. So that they haven't really gone too much into what they look like, but it's super cool. But I really like the book. It was super fun to imagine movie scenes as they were described in the book. I think that Denny did a fairly dang faithful adaptation of the book, and a lot of the complaints people had about certain elements that were different or weren't in the book, I felt like were good changes. This is definitely controversial, but as someone who watched the movie first, which that's an important caveat, I do prefer his telling of the story. Mm-hmm. Like there were some things that were super satisfying in the movie. Just one example, in the book, spoilers, Baron Harkonnen doesn't get killed by Paul Atreides. He gets killed by his sister, Alia, with a little needle. She just pokes him, and then he dies.
Yep.
But it's such a satisfying vengeance arc to have Paul walk up to him and just shove a knife right into his neck like a pig and just kill him. He's like, "Hi, grandfather," and just murders him. I'm like, God damn! That was so awesome. I loved that moment. And I'm curious if I had read the book first, if I would have preferred that more. You read the book first.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about it?
I was surprised in the movie. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
But it was also like, so when you have that moment of surprise, then your just brain goes to the differences. And I think you are influenced by what is your kind of first experience with it.
Definitely.
But I didn't dislike it. Like looking at it, back at it in hindsight after the movie was over, I was like, no, it's a very satisfying and visual thing and a very visual movie. So I think it makes sense. Also, a lot of these things are like, you have to then like reverse engineer building in this character whose whole purpose, her main kind of point to the story is then that she kills him. So you have to make her present through the whole thing. When in the books too, she's not a major character. So it just kind of feels out of left field. And it goes to the bigger thing of like in books, there's so much more going on and there's so much more depth for things. So you are along for the ride that this character was the undoing of him because there's just so many moving parts. You can't do that and create a really cohesive, even over a trilogy of movies. You can't do that really eloquently.
Not everyone can get the screen time they need to like justify being part of the story. Did you like the movie more than the book, or did you like the book telling more than the movie in general?
That's a good question. I really liked the movie because I had read the book and it did such a faithful job of world building and really feeling like a unique place. But that was based on the depth of the book really giving you that to begin with. It was a great foundation, and you knew that the way that he describes the world often at length, in the uniqueness of places and people and situations and factions and everything, is with a lot of depth that I respected a lot how that movie was able to pull it off without getting so deep in the weeds, because the book is heavy. You know, it's not a book that you could look back to like the fantasy and sci-fi books I read as like a teenager and stuff. It's not something I think I would have probably liked then. But more I appreciate now. So yeah, they're both great. I think without the books, I wouldn't like the movies as much.
Yeah, that's definitely I could see that being true for sure. I was on an airplane reading the book, and a flight attendant came by, and she was like, "What's that?" Or she said, "What's that book about?" And like I totally blanked. I was like, "How the fuck do you describe this book? It's a book of religious extortion. Like I have no idea how to describe this book.
Have you ever seen Tremors?
That's the worms, basically.
Yeah. It's like Tremors, but in space.
Yeah. But she found out that I was reading Dune, and then she told me that she has a friend who put it on her DNF list, which is a new concept for me. A did not finish list. And she was like, yeah, my friend isn't like stupid. Like she enjoyed reading Dante's Inferno. I was like,
That's fucking
Dante's Inferno from the 1600s, bro?
Yeah.
Like, I thought, okay, so I read a little bit of that book actually for a YouTube video. Me and Trent did this collaboration where we both tried to create an image
level of hell.
An image of hell.
Yeah.
And so I read 3 books, and one of them was a little bit of Dante's Inferno. That book is unreadable.
It's so hard. I've read the whole thing.
What the
fuck?
fuck?
It's so fucking hard to read. It's so. But
What
it's
possessed you to read Dante's Inferno?
I am a emo kid. I don't know.
You also bought all the Edgar Allan Poe books from the estate sale?
Dude, I love macabre things, and that's one of the OGs.
It is. It really is. But that blew me away comparing Dante's Inferno to Dune. I was like, they're not even the same fucking level.
No. Yikes. Yikes on bikes.
Yeah.
I would say when you said DNF, my brain went to do not fuck. As in if you meet a dude that's read that book.
Not fuckable, this book.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm like, also it's kind of cool to have a list. It's just your checklist of things, you know.
Just a warning, you know.
Right. Yeah. Like they watch more than X number of pro sporting events on TV in a given year or something like that. No, that's too many, dude. I'm sorry. You made the list. Okay, what else did I have?
You're going on vacation?
I'm going on vacation. For the first time since I started YouTube full time, we're doing a real vacation. We're going to Florida.
Nice.
I'm taking my daughter to Harry Potter World.
Okay.
Oh, she is pumped.
Nice.
And then we're also going to spend a day at Disney World Animal Kingdom.
Okay.
And that's exciting. So we're to figure out which Disney place to go to. And we had never been to Animal Kingdom. My daughter was a big animal nut, and I love animals too. So it's just like, oh, let's do that. She's not a rider. She doesn't like roller coasters and shit.
Like even like kind of like chill ones?
No, but we went when she was little. She was probably like 6 years old, 7 years old, and we went with the in-laws down there, and she didn't not even like the teacup ride, not even the Small World, like nothing. She didn't want to do anything. She is a scaredy cat in general.
Like the slow ones that kind of just like show you things as you kind of like meander by.
Okay. That was too much. She could probably do that now.
Okay.
But I tell her too that I'm like, you're not going to get hurt. Part of it is just embracing the excitement and the scariness, because when you realize when it's over, it was fun and you weren't actually going to get hurt. So I just feel like I play this really, walk a tightrope with my daughter and all things about putting her in levels of uncomfortability, but also respecting if she says that's too much. Right. So I'm like, I want to push her, but I don't want to push her too much. I just want to let her see that side of it. So maybe we'll do that. But yeah, so that's it. It's pretty exciting. And one of my great patrons and someone that we see at AdeptCon every year, he works for Disney. He's an engineer, and he hooked us up with one-day passes for Disney.
That's fucking awesome.
So thank you, Bug King.
Yeah, shout out to Bug King, man.
Yeah, and he fucking works on the Star Wars rides and shit.
That's awesome.
It's his fucking job, dude.
I did not know that.
He makes the Star Wars rides.
That's so cool.
How rad is that shit?
That is so cool.
So that's cool. And actually, Bug King and his family are going on a cruise, but they're going to be back right our last day there. So I'm hoping that we can meet them for lunch or something. So
that's really fun. Cool. I've never been to Disney World. I think I've been to Universal Studios when I was a freshman in high school. I don't think I've ever gone to I think that's in California.
This one's in Florida. So there's a Disney. Oh, fuck, I don't know. Disneyland and Disney World. I don't know which one's Florida and which one's California.
Is Universal Studios in California?
There's also in both.
Okay, all right. I have no clue.
Yeah, because
the Gulf side, or is that the Atlantic side? The one in Florida.
It's Orlando, I think.
You know, my wife knows everything there is to know about fucking Florida, and so she would know the answer to this instantaneously, but I have no clue.
She's a Florida woman.
Yeah, she is. She is deep down.
But Florida has the better Harry Potter world. It's a lot. We've been to both, and the Florida one is way, way better than the Universal Studios California one.
Okay.
So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun there.
That sounds fun, man.
I'm gonna buy a robe. I'm gonna get placed in a house.
Isn't there like an attraction where you can like wave wands at shit and things happen?
Yeah. It's all over the park.
That's
like
fucking
if you get a wand there, they have some kind of a chip or something in them, and you can take them places and do stuff, and then like animatronics and shit happens.
There's this like a science YouTuber that I watched called William Osman who actually tried to hack the wand thing. Now that I remember, so it would like do random shit when he would like wave like an RF like chip at a thing. I don't know if it actually ended up working, but I do remember that now. That's so rad. Yeah. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. All right, last thing for me, my Necromunda campaign's still going on. Been playing games. Been losing a lot of games lately because of this weird mechanic in Necromunda. Yeah, because only because it's a weird mechanic. But the way that a game works in Necromunda is the first thing you do every turn is you determine priority. Who's going to go first? And then after that, players can voluntarily bottle out. Like if you decide that you've sustained too many injuries or you've come to get what you want, you can just be like, I'm out of here. I'm gone. Or you might
peace out.
Exactly. Or you might just bottle out because your leader is dead and people are losing their cool checks and just bottling out in general. That is also a thing that happens. And so like the last couple times I played the game, I've played to like last 2 times. I've played to like round 6 or 7, and like both teams are like fucking hurting. And like on that turn, both players would choose to bottle out. But I happen to win the priority roll, and I have to decide first. And so I decide first, and then I lose.
No!
Which is kind of weird, you know? I don't know how you'd make it better.
Can't you just like call, maybe you make it a hidden check where you write down on a piece of paper, and then you have to flip it up at the same time.
That'd be cool. There has to be a winner and loser in every scenario based on like the rewards they give out. I mean, we could probably change those as well, but that kind of gets a little bit hairy. I don't really care, but it is sad to see like my opponent get like 3 times the reputation or credits or experiences I did because I happen to roll a higher die roll than them. But it's fine. You still get stuff for winning and losing and whatnot.
But there's not a mechanic in the game to defer? If you won the initiative roll, you can defer and allow them to go first. You can make them go before you.
You know, honestly, it's Necromunda. There may be some rule for that. I'm not aware of it when I looked last time because it happened 2 times in a row. I was like, okay, what's the exact order of operations? I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Uh-huh. And I went and researched like the beginning of turn and bottling out, and I think I have it right. So I didn't see anything in there about deferring, but again, it could be in some cryptic manual from the 90s that people use. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it would be like, I'm just picturing on the battlefield, you'd be like, you both see like all your dudes are mostly dead or just like squirming around because they're all beat up and shot and everything. And you'd be like, we good? You good over there? Time out. Let's just go home. This never happened. All right, we're good.
Grab that chest. I'll take this one. We're good.
Yeah. Then you just take all the rewards for the winner and the loser. You pile them together. You divide by 2. Everyone gets half.
Yeah. The main thing you get from winning a game of Necromunda is you get a territory, and then you can work the territory, and that gives you cash after every game. It gives you a buff or a special item. So it's nice to get those territories as opposed to just getting like 100 credits and then spending it on gear for your dudes.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's okay. I won like the first 2 or 3 matches, and so I kind of started out really strong, and then I'm getting beaten down a little bit, and it's good.
Well, you brought back to the pack.
I need it. Yeah, I need it.
You know, you need that Mario Kart rubber banding a little bit. You know,
need to get blue shelled every now and then, dude.
Yeah, bro.
You can't do fucking shit about that. Other than that, what's that fucking boombox item called? Like that boombox thingy? I don't know, stereo.
I don't know. This is probably a newer version of Mario Kart that I'm familiar with.
Okay, well, it has like this AoE effect where if you like hit someone near you, they get stunned. But also, it's the only item in the game that can destroy a blue shell.
Oh shit!
And you never get it in first place.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like it might as well not do that. You know, it's just for those times for the schmuck in the middle that was just happened to be lined up with the first place dude. So the blue shell just and took him out on the way.
Yeah.
Like, that's the worst feeling.
That feels so bad. Yeah.
You're like, bro, I was in 6th.
Yeah.
Why'd I get smushed by that blue shell on its way to his destination?
It feels so bad, especially when you're trying to avoid it. You can hear it coming, so you can get to the side of the track, and it still fucking hits you. And it's like, dude, are you like going for me?
Yeah,
I'm in 9th place, bro.
It's like an ambulance coming down the highway behind you. Yeah, well, move over.
Yeah,
Move
exactly.
over. Nope.
Exactly.
It's even worse. Is you got a fucking ring of red shells around you. You know, You're like I'm gonna do these. I'm gonna get these red shells when I'm in the middle of the pack, and then I'm gonna get my way up there. And this is I'm gonna go from 3rd to 1st. So I'm gonna red shell a couple fools. But then when that blue shell hits you, it fucking smucks off all your red shells
Does
too.
it?
Yes, it does.
That's brutal.
Dude, it's real world mechanics. You know, just all those physics just line up just right, and there you go. My last thing is I was chatting the other day to little Andy Wardle, and he was like, "Hey, you know, how's your Golden Demon project coming along?" I'm like, "Go fuck yourself." I'm like, so post Adepticon, I was riding the excitement, the energy, the whatever, and I was heavy digging into trying to find my muse, trying to find the right project, the right model base version of a kit that I was going to work with. And my plan was, and kind of still is to enter the large category. So whether it's, I don't know, AOS or 40K, I'm kind of leaving myself open. And sometimes when I do this where I'm like, oh, I really have this, I'd like to find something, I have a cool idea that I'd like to do XYZ kind of a project. And through that searching process, I discover something else that excites me more. Maybe it's tangential, maybe it's completely different, and then I go that way. And that's all part of the journey. And I like to just like embrace that wherever your excitement takes you for a project. That's where you know you need to be. But that's my starting point with this. And I did a lot of digging. I looked through every single kit in Age of Sigmar, and I looked through a bunch in 40K. And I have a couple of ideas, but nothing that was like immediately like, yep, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to start. I'm going to do whatever. Nothing really, got me going. And then it's just kind of fallen off the radar over the last like month and a half. And so it reminds me that this is how painting for competition goes for all of us, is that if it will just jump up on you, if you don't at least keep it in the back of your mind and start making some kind of progress, it could be every week, it could be the farther away you are from the competition or whatever your goal is in painting, the further you are away, the less like really hammering on it you need to be. But I feel like if you just stop and it falls off your map entirely, like so much time will pass and it's so much harder for you to get back in it. I'm certainly not to that point, but it's reminded me I need to dig back into this.
Mm-hmm. Bro, you need to paint a Vermin Lord.
I was looking at them real hard.
That ninja Vermin Lord, dude.
I know. There's some weird things about their pose. I don't like their tails. Their tails kind of swoop up in front of them.
Okay.
But like, you're right. The Vermin Lord is such a badass model.
It's an old one, though.
It's an old one in the same way that like Nagash and the Mortark kits are old ones. Mm-hmm. Like they came out right before Age of Sigmar. So they're a new plastic kit, but they're like the first gen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I honestly don't really like the Mortark models. I think maybe it's just because the mount makes the dude on top just look so unimpressive and not interesting.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I want like Neferata to be like the biggest, coolest thing on the model, not the thing she's riding. But
they get lost, especially because those things are all made of bones. There's so much bumpies and like, everything is a detail. There's no big shapes.
Yeah.
It's all small shapes that come together. Okay. That is visually kind of like distortion. And so it's harder to see that. You're right though too. When we looked at like the new the new spoilers, or I guess releases of the visuals of the new 4th edition Age of Sigmar kits, and both the rat on rat and the Stormcast on Bird Dog, both of them, the pose and kind of the centralization of those figures draws more attention to them, makes them more imposing, even though they're not like bigger.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like the size of like a Mortarch or a Primarch. They're slightly bigger in scale, I think, than what we're getting for like a Neferata, but they're not so massive. It's just that they're kind of positioned in a way to really highlight them more than the mount.
Okay. All right. We do it? Did we do it?
We fucking talked about.
I'm talking about 6 things.
God damn.
All right.
That's a lot of things. Yeah, we didn't really talk about, we did one of the new things. We don't talk about news as much anymore just because like
we're fucking late. No one cares.
Dude, yeah, we're late, and it's like miniature news is very rarely stuff that's really that big of a deal, So we've got a couple things, the 4th edition stuff. I don't know if you read anything about the rules or tweaks and changes.
Yeah.
In the red system.
All the rules that I've read about are all pretty solid changes that I'm definitely in favor for.
I know. It does feel like I was talking to my buddy Blair about it because he hadn't really kept up to it, but he's kind of ready to jump back in. And I talked to him about how range works for melee. Like everything is just 3. You got to be within 3 inches. Each model has to be within 3 inches. So he's like, well, that's weird. And I'm like, think about it this way. You no longer have to spend all this time, and this is a big problem that I've had of miniature war games. The more models you have, the worse this is. In general, is the time wasted of fiddling your little fucking dudes around to just the right amount so each dude gets in, so each dude can swing their rusty sword, and and how you could you daisy chain them around and all this, like that can take so much time. But here, you're just like, they're pretty close. You still get the pile and move. You still get them around there, but you don't have to spend 3 times as much time to really just get to the same final outcome.
Why is this any different? It's just a bigger distance, right?
It's a bigger distance, but that distance means that you spend less time getting them into the ideal position.
Okay.
Right? Because oftentimes, especially the big units, anything that's 20 models or more, like there was like a science to getting as many models in range as possible to swing. Mm-hmm. And so you'd take a long time making sure that you'd get them all wrapped around or in this like zigzag formation. Mm-hmm. So they would all be within the 1 inch.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And it was just a pain in the ass, especially when you had like 25 mil bases. So you could kind of stagger them to get them in and all that. It's like, oh, now all that's gone. But then the question is like, yeah, but then what about like models that have longer range weapons, things like that, spears or pikes or halberds and stuff? Well, doesn't that kind of make it obsolete? What's the point there? And it's like, well, no. Now they have specific rules for models that have weapons like that are thematic to how that weapon would work and give you a bonus in the game. For example, models that have big spears, they have an ability that says, it's called like, brace for impact or something. If they get charged, they get to attack first. So makes sense. Their spears would be set for impact. That you're coming in on your horses, their spears get to hit before your horses hit. Yeah. So even though the ranges are all 3 inches, then it's bam, it's universal. I like keeping complexity in the minutia, but the high level rules are pretty elegant and easy to follow, and so I'm pretty pumped about it. And I haven't dug much into the spearhead rules. Apparently with this box set, it's got 2 spearhead factions in there and all the rules, and the boards to play on and stuff too. And
oh my god, imagine that, a star set with 2 playable armies in it.
I don't know what this is.
Whoa, dude. How much does it cost? I actually don't know.
I have no idea.
Okay,
they're probably not going to tell that until you're properly hyped.
I think Jay made a video where he was like saying how it was super expensive. That was the title of the video. I haven't watched it, so I didn't know if the price was
also fucking speculation. I'm guessing, maybe not, but like, but this is how it's worked when they did the Horus Heresy box. It's how it's worked when they did the 10th edition 40K box. There's all like, we look at the trajectory of pricing. We looked at the last thing. We looked at price that was about this amount of models, about this size, and we look at price increases since that time, and then they put a price on it, and they're usually pretty fucking close.
Sure, yeah.
Usually within $10,
okay,
$20, one way or the other. And now with the announcement of GW price hikes, which is another news thing, there's another GW price hike. That's that's got to hit before the new boxes hit, so you get that price hike in there, and so it's probably going to be about $200, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So the charge thing is called Brace for Impact.
It's something like that.
There's an ability in Song of Ice and Fire called Set for Charge, which is the exact same rule.
I know.
You get to swing first when you get charged. It's nice. I'm not saying that they stole it. So it kind of seems like with the 3-inch thing, they're kind of just pushing the boulder, right? So now larger units are still going to play the game of trying to jam pack as many dudes in. I don't know if this was a rule in AOS at some point or if it was an OPR thing, but a very elegant way to deal with this is you get to hit someone if you're in base contact with them. Or you get to hit someone if you are in base contact with a dude who is in base contact with another dude. Oh, you have a spear? You can chain that to 3 dudes now, and that's your special rule. Was that ever in AOS, or is that a thing from? I think it's from One Page Rules potentially. I can't remember. But that's way more clear cut to me.
Yeah,
seems.
I don't. In my time in playing Age of Sigmar, that hasn't been a rule, but it seems like another elegant way. But also, maybe in the testing of that, they found out that you still end up spending a bunch of time making sure you could get all your guys lined up to base. Yeah,
there's a lot of bullshit that goes on when you get down to these half-inch measurements. It's like, was that guy really able to get in base contact with my enemy? It's like, whatever, just take it. I don't care.
Yeah, and the smaller you make the measurement, the more that fine-tuning of 1/8 of an inch matters.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so if you have 3 inches and your average base size is about 1 inch at 32 millimeters, you just give yourself more wiggle room to play with your toys. Sure. Right? We just want my dudes to be able to do the thing that they're here to do, and not this feel bad moment of well, half of my dudes are standing over there and they can't even do the thing. They can't even swing their rusty swords. That's lame. But there still is strategy. You come in with your dragon. They have a whole line of their rats that goes 15 inches wide, 2 deep. You come in, you hit one side of it. Well, even with pile in and plus 3 inches, they're still probably not going to get all of them, but that's a strategic advantage you took on how you approached it. So it's you kind of could get both, and it's not just dumbing it down. But
I appreciate that. They don't want to make that part of the game an argument or even a conversation, right? So they're just trying to make it a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah. That makes sense.
You see, they got rid of Battle Shock entirely.
Yeah, fuck that. That was the stupidest step in the game.
I know. It used to be a thing, and I think it was actually going back to Age of Sigmar, the Warhammer Old World. It was more of it was a complex but a more usable, came into play often system. Over the time, it was just the haves and the have-nots. You were either an army that wasn't affected by Battle Shock. Your Battle Shock, your bravery was so high that it didn't matter anyway, and the number of models in your units, there's 5 dudes in there, bravery 10, you can't lose. Or you had some army ability, a lot of death did, and so did the toad people, I can't remember what they're called, Seraphon, where it's just you can do things to just be immune to it. And then you had the people that didn't have that. And so it was either you'd lose a shitload of people or you didn't lose anybody. So if you just have 1s and 0s, it just is it's either a non-factor in the game, it doesn't need to exist, or it's just a frustrating factor for the person that just wanted to play this army that just happened to be bad for that. So
there's also a generic command ability that you can just spend 1 CP and just automatically pass the test. So the one time it did fucking matter, you just fucking auto pass it.
Yeah.
It super felt like a non-factor in the game all the time. So I'm glad they just nixed that entirely. That's kind of just them following their formula for war games, even maybe when it doesn't make sense. But I'm glad they're kind of breaking away from that a little bit. That makes sense. Yeah. Cool.
So I'm excited for that.
I'm excited too. I heard at that pre-release that they said, we're going to take a look at the game and really kind of clean it out, do some spring cleaning. And it really feels like and sounds like that's what they're doing. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm excited. We're bringing rats to the party, boys.
Hell yeah, brother.
Rat boys.
All right, what you got?
All right.
What you painted?
Well, I painted rats. Hey, look at that
rats.
segue.
Where should we start?
So I'll let you look at whichever 3 of these rats you want to see.
Green Smoke Boy is calling my name right now.
Yeah. So what this is preparation for my new army. And so the whole premise was, and this kind of ties into our main topic for today, was I wanted to test to find out what was the most fun combination for me of speed and quality. Because I think of painting an army as a spectrum of speed and quality, and you're somewhere on that spectrum, right? And I've often found that, especially, it doesn't help with making the YouTube videos of being like, can you paint how long does it take to paint this army? Or how can you paint this in a weekend? Or can you paint this in 48 hours? Or painting my army in 24 hours to get ready for a tournament, or blah, 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 blah. It's all about doing it as fast as possible. And I've done those videos and I've painted those armies. And I look back at them and I'm not upset how they look, but I know, like, I cut a fair amount of corners to get there. So I wanted to pull myself more towards the middle, and I experimented in 3 different ways to try to come towards the middle.
You're pretty good at painting models, you know that?
Oh, thanks.
These look so good.
They're all about...
This purple guy is so fucking good.
Dude, he's fucking Eshin, dude. Ninja rats. I fucking love them. So each of those is about a 3 to 4 hour paint job. The dude with the machete on a stick was under 3. And the plumy smoke dude was just under 4, and this dude was about 3.5 for Eshin dude. So it's 3 different approaches. Dude with machete on a stick was black primer, put contrast paints over the different surfaces, who doesn't need to be perfect, directly over the black primer to give you like a shadow color that's not black, but it's dark. It gives some influence of tone. And then start from mid-tone from there and just avoid all the shadows. So you're just layering up with just a couple layers depending on the surface. For all the models, I spent more time on the skin. And this was something that I came to realize the process is I think it's important to take your time on the part of the model that you enjoy painting, that you like to do. Oftentimes, it's the thing that makes the most impact. And that doesn't mean it's the biggest thing on the model necessarily. If you really like having like glowy plasma guns, right? Take your time to have that awesome glowing effect or whatever. And that will make a big impact on the model. And I really enjoy painting skin. And I did a different kind of skin tone for each of them, used different colors, and had fun doing that. And I came to the realizations like, I'm going to do that for an entire army. I'm not going to worry about making all their fur and their skin look the same. And whatever colors I feel like that day, I'm just going to pull out 3 or 4 different things and paint this unit in 3 or 4 different skin tones. And while I spent like 40 to 50% of my painting time on each of those models was just painting the skin and fur. That makes enough of an impact that you can kind of pull your punches elsewhere.
Bro, you're speaking army painting heresy right now.
Right. Yeah. Everything's got to be the exact same. Yeah. I don't even think like I'm going to have like I'll probably have like one singular universal color that's around them, whether it be that a vibrant red or something. But like I don't think you need to have them all have the exact same this is painted this and this is painted that too for them to look like an army. I think that's just what we're told by looking at the pictures in the White Dwarf.
It's like a safe bet, right? It's
Yes.
like a proven thing, you know.
Yeah, and you can make them feel cohesive, and you can have a certain color or even 2-color combination, but how you use it and how you use it a lot here and maybe a little here, or this one it's just on the shoulder pad, or how you designate their levels in the army and that kind of stuff. So I just had a lot of fun. So that guy was that. That guy is Zenithal white from above, Zenithal red violet from below, and then just tried not to paint the underneath purple color and just painted mid-tone and above quickly. And then this dude is just Zenithal from above and almost all wet blended.
Okay.
It's just a wet blend to get your foundation and then a couple of highlights over the top.
A couple of scratchy, little edgy highlights.
Yeah.
I love this purple base and like how much it like draws your attention to the fact that the purple is the shadow.
Yeah.
And I feel like I always struggle with that idea. And you're doing it well here, but it helps even more on the tabletop when this purple contextualizes the rest of the model. And it's like, oh, that skin is kind of purple, It kind of it gives you like an anchor for it.
It allows you to see the source.
Yeah.
Because that's what's so hard oftentimes, especially when you're talking about tabletop models, is if there's an object starts sliding but you don't see the object, and then maybe the models aren't all facing the same direction and stuff. It suddenly doesn't feel as cohesive or as uniform. But if you could integrate it as it's coming from the basing, it's like it will all be universally from below and above, and then you don't have to paint the underside of bullshit that takes a lot of time when you're painting your models. Just fucking keep it. The downside of that is that when you're working with any kind of contrast paints or washes, you can see it on the tube that he's standing on. You can't control that shit to not go from the underside. So it just kind of flowed down there.
Oh, yeah, because it wants to go down with gravity.
Yeah.
But this is a good rule of thumb. I think I'm going to use this for my armies now. If I have a universal shadow, that should also be the color of the base.
And it saves you a lot of time fucking painting the base, too.
Because you've already painted it largely kind of like that. A little shading up here, and that's it.
Well, see, I did the zenithal from above first. So that base is not been touched other than a few little spotty edge highlights. That is exactly how it looked after a white zenithal from above and then a purple zenithal from below. And then while I had the airbrush out hitting the zenithal from below, I just sprayed that whole purple base. And there's areas that are brighter because that's where the white zenithal hit them. So if you do it second, then it's like, dude, 90% of your base work is then done. So he has a cool kind of dynamic base on him to begin with, which probably doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah, the swooping curve there to get a dark shadow and then going into purple, that definitely helps.
Yeah,
it's really good.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I went away with that, like taking something away from each of those that I'm going to then implement into the army. The whole purpose was I didn't really know going in. I'm like, I'm going to do 3. One of the 3 will be the best. Was kind of my initial thought, but what I ended up with was like, there's something I took from each one of those that I'm going to use. I think that's my worry with the universal shadow color is will it get a bit too at a larger scale? Does it hold up, or does it seem kind of like kitschy or whatever?
I think it will look lame if like you do a super aggressive OSL effect across the entire faction.
You're right.
Like that, to me, I think I understand what you're saying. This is subtle and it's good and it's like it's executed super well. If your army looked like that, it would just be like beautifully thematic and like really cohesive, I think. That I really like this one. This is my number 1 right here. That purple guy is fucking banging.
I fell back in love with wet blending on doing this.
Oh, yeah?
I fucking forgot how much time.
It's funny.
How much time you save to get the quality you get with wet blending. Yeah. It's so dumb. It's like, but it's a tricky thing. Like in the whole plumage thing, that was all wet blended too.
Yeah.
And then you just put in pure white and then put your vibrant green over top of that. And it's just like, oh, it kind of does all the work for you. But
yeah.
But it's not a technique that you're going to be able to pull off really well without practice. But I came to the realization that it's like, then an army is a great time to do it.
Yeah.
That by the time you finish that army, you're going to be pretty darn good at this.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of forcing yourself to get in the reps
to
do it. And so
that's good. That's it. I have a predicament that I need your help with and the Goody PP's help with. Okay. I did a little small scale test here, just like you're doing small scale testing. So I have a scheme for my Dark Eldar of cream and black, and I want the Razor Wing to have a chipped paint effect. And so the whole model right now is base coated in a lovely Mr. Hobby silver that I bought from the hobby shop. And now I'm to the point where I need to apply the chipping medium and then start doing my two-tone scheme. The problem with it is that there are very specific panels that I want to be cream and certain ones I want to be black. And this is time sensitive. So say I airbrush the whole thing with chipping medium, and then I airbrush all the parts I want to be cream, and then I mask off all those cream parts, and then I do black, and then I take all the tape off. Is that going to take too long on that big-ass jet, do that taping job and all that airbrushing job? Because I need to do highlights and shadows. I can't just do base coats. Am I going to come back to that, however many hours later? And is the chipping medium still going to be active enough for me to actually start to rub off the paint and get nice flakes of silver everywhere? If it was just one color, this would not be an issue. But because I'm like doubling the painting time on top of the chipping medium, I'm afraid that, especially on the second part, there'd be so many layers of paint to get through to get to the silver below. How do I do this? Do I have to do it in 2 steps?
Okay. This
was easy because it was a small little rocket.
Yes.
And it took fucking 5 minutes.
Right.
But with the big guy, I don't know.
Okay. Is there a reason why you can't paint the whole thing silver, do the whole thing black, do the chipping, and then do the cream after? and not have to tape anything off? Is there any reason why you couldn't just do that?
How would I do the cream with all the black chipped and looking fresh and not get cream on the black?
I'm confused.
Okay.
So like you have panels that you want to be cream, right?
Yeah, because the razor wing has very specific panels that are like nicely laid out. And so like the two front prongs, I want to be black. The main middle cockpit area and like the start of the wings, I want to be cream. And then the back of the wings, I want to be black again. So the middle is cream and the outsides are black.
Yeah. Okay. I would not do the cream until after you do all those other steps. And you can avoid it with an airbrush. You'd be like, I know this whole giant oval section in the center. Even if I get a little overspray to it,
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's chill, yeah.
But like, do that after, because the whole taping and whatever process, I don't think you need to do that. You can just do that after the fact, and then you're not putting yourself under the big time crunch.
So 2 steps. You're saying silver, black, highlights and shadows, chip it. Then silver on the cream, chipping medium, white, highlights and shadows, chip it. Break it into 2 discrete steps? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I would do it that way. Also, I think with cream and a silver chipping underneath, that I don't think that's going to show really well.
It's not going to show well. Yeah, they're kind of similar value.
So you can approach that a different way. That you could you want to have contrast in that chipping, because the whole point is to show the weathering and stuff. Maybe use a dark reddish brown or something with a sponge on, and just select smaller points on that cream, and then do some of that nice streaking and have it going backwards to go with that nice speed feel you're going with. You could do that. Maybe those panels aren't made of metal underneath. Maybe they're made out of polycarbonate or something, and so they're not silver underneath. Whatever story you need to tell yourself to create the drama, because even on a small scale there, I can tell that there's silver chipping there, but it doesn't do much. Yeah. So make that contrast there. The other option, so that's using a sponging chipping there. The other option is you do a sponging chipping for the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, you could just you don't need to do the chipping medium.
Yeah, you paint the whole thing black, and you do a sponging with silver, where it would show through.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the initial question. Yes, even the most time intensive version that you talked about, it's still possible, but there's a couple things you're going to have to do. Is you're going to have to rehydrate that a bit. So you're going to want your brush, and even like a toothpick or whatever, or even like people will brush on pure water over the top first. You need to rehydrate that, activate that, and then you're going to probably need a firmer brush, not a floppy brush, for it to get enough unction.
Yeah, I've seen Plasmo on his channel, like you just said it, use literal toothpicks. And so I think that's what I did on this rocket a little bit, and that worked pretty well. But like it's like this weird formula of like, how much chipping medium did you apply? How long did you wait? How much paint you put on top of it? And it's like I use it so infrequently that I never know, and it's kind of like a shot in the dark.
Yeah. If you have zero level of confidence going into it, what it's going to look like when you're done. And the chipping and stuff that I've done, it's like sometimes you'll get sections and you're like, oh my God, that looks fucking amazing. It looks to scale, it looks great. And then a half an inch away, I did the exact same thing and the exact same amount of cure time, whatever. And I'm like, this looks like dog shit. Like, I don't know, there's some level of expertise in it that I don't have, or there's a number of variables involved in it that you kind of have to live with the chaos that it is. The more chipped you're willing to make it, the better it is to look good, because you're just going to have it everywhere. If you're going to be more precise with it and not have a ton of it, I almost think you're better off going with the sponging, because then you still get the chaos because you don't know exactly how that sponge is going to drop at any specific point, but like you can kind of control it a little bit more.
That's an interesting idea. The other concern is that if I'm going to be like fucking hitting this thing with a wet brush, like for sure I'm going to wipe away some of my weak ass airbrushed highlights and shadows.
Yeah.
Like it's and I hate that when that happens, when you reactivate acrylic paint and like it gets like ripped away in a super unnatural way.
And sometimes too, it'll like if there's water on there too, it'll like reactivate, and then the water that's on your brush or it's on there kind of gets like milky. If it's on your highlight spot, and then it kind of like drips down into further down the blend, and then it re-dries, and you're just like, oh, this looks like fucking dog shit.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna.
If this was my project, I would sponge weather.
I've been trying to paint it like a model kit.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to use some of their techniques, but they don't really like do a lot of airbrush highlighting and shading. From the videos that I've watched,
Right.
It's mostly like they'll use like oil paints or something like that, or different techniques to like get surface, like different surfaces and different like looks and stuff.
Yeah, they create depth that way more than creating a natural light source of highlights and shadows, or it's not over exaggerated. A lot of what we do is, especially when you see it on vehicles, is more over exaggerated.
Yeah,
especially on a shape of that kind of a thing. There's so many smooth curves.
No, and you really want to get nice shadows in them and have beautiful blends up into the highlights because it's such a big surface area, you know.
And I see that oftentimes when I see, especially from like the painting studios that do commission painting and stuff, when they have like the big planes for Eldar and the Drukhari stuff, they're so over the top and how bright their airbrushed highlights get on this thing that's shaped like an egg, but it's even to scale, it would only be about 2 feet higher from the top of the egg to the bottom of the egg. It would not be that drastic of the highlight. And so it's just like, oh, you know, but you want to keep it in the same realm as the rest of your army, because we paint small figures with over exaggerated highlights and shadows. So you don't want it to feel out of the loop.
Mm-hmm.
God, this is fucking deep questions.
Yeah, I've been trying to ruminate on it. Otherwise, I've got 5 incubi painted. Not 5, totally painted. I'm still working on their blades. And what I'm going to talk about in the after party is I tried something on the blades that was a total fail on this past stream. And I want to talk about that process and how it was different than last time that I tried it and why it failed this time. But their entire body is entirely painted other than their sword. So I'm really happy with these guys. I can't wait to see them as a group of 5.
I really like just the pure chrome sword as is.
I know, yeah. It is really cool.
Just drop a little black oil wash into each of those little symbol things.
Mm-hmm.
Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, it could look that could look super cool, and like it should be fucking shiny and chrome, dude.
Yeah,
it's like a wicked blade.
Yeah, it's really accentuates the kind of the matte finish of the rest of the armor too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it feels very purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
It's this is meant to be that this thing is a shiny implement of death.
Yeah, and they're super like legalistic incubi, and so they would like care for their weapon like a son, you know.
Yeah.
Like they totally would.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really happy with these guys. They're cool.
Yeah, you should be. I really like them.
Thank you.
Is the one you fucked up on? And you just painted chrome over the top of it again? Or?
No. I painted it chrome first, and then I painted it black. And I want to talk about what happened. Or what didn't happen, I should say.
Well, you thought was gonna happen?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a nice spoiler for a little teaser, I should say.
Yeah,
for the after party.
Honestly, I haven't painted a whole lot in the last 2 weeks. I've been fucking gaming so hardcore. I've been playing a lot of this game called Dune Spice Wars, and V Rising just got its official release, and there's a ton of new and awesome content in that game, and I've been enjoying both. They kind of both came out at the same time, and I've got double teamed.
Oh boy, man! I played V Rising back when that was back when you were playing it too.
It's cool. It's
better
different now. Yeah, I mean you're gonna recognize some things, but there are more bosses.
Motherfuckers breaking down my castle when I'm not playing the game. Fuck those guys.
You played the PvP version of the game. I'm over here in PvE land, just chilling, dude.
Nah, I just wreck fools. I mean I'm not one to talk. I ransacked a lot of people's bases while they were offline. So. Oh man! Speaking of video games, I got an Xbox Series X this week.
What is that?
It's the newest Xbox.
How new?
I don't know. It's been out for a year or two.
Oh, cool! Yeah, why'd you get it? Did you want to play a certain game?
No. So I did end up getting a video game. I did end up getting Hogwarts Legacy. My daughter and I are playing that together, and that's really fun. Our character's name is Fritz Fizzlebottom.
That sounds fucking perfect.
But the reason I bought the fucking Xbox is got a big screen TV downstairs, and it's a really nice Samsung that I actually got from my buddy Dan as he upgraded that TV. But it was like one of those ones, it's like 8 years old now, this TV, but it was one of those ones that's like $9,000 when it came out. It's like the highest level Samsung. It's got one corner where it's got a little bit of a haze to it. It's not bad at all. I wouldn't even known it if he would have told me. But I helped him put his new fucking 75-inch TV in his house and got it all installed and everything hooked up for him. And as thank you, he gave me his old TV. I was like, oh, that's nice.
That's awesome.
But because it's that old, most apps you can't download on the TV.
Oh, it's like, so it's kind of smart, but not really smart?
Yeah, I mean, it's smart, but it was just like you can't put Hulu on it. You can't put HBO Max on it. You can't put Disney Plus or whatever. You can put like Netflix, and that's fucking it. So I'm like, fuck. Shit. So I'm like, okay, so what I have to do is then like.
So you bought an Xbox to
all right, I will get there. There's a reason why I ended up with that. So I'm like, okay, well then if I'm going to do that, then I'm like, well, you have to get a separate basically thing that is going to run the apps and through to your TV. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm going to look at fucking 4K DVD players. 4K Blu-ray players.
Yeah.
So then I can play the 4K Blu-rays.
They ain't cheap
on the crazy TV. Yeah, and that led me down to the industry standard Panasonic. What's that called? It's like HX 850 or something, whatever. And they don't make very many 4K Blu-ray players. There's not very many models on the market.
I think it's a dying thing.
Yes. And so that 4K Blu-ray player is $450.
Yeah, mine wasn't that much. Mine was like $200, but still, that's a fucking lot.
Yes, yeah. And I've worked with regular Blu-ray players and with like the old PS3 or 4, whichever one I had before. I don't remember. Where there's like they're really loud. Their load times are long. Like they're just like they're really slow. But like so, I appreciate and I can definitely see the value in having one that's works really well and it's quick uptime and all this kind of stuff. It's quiet. But then I looked at it and was like, oh, the Xbox plays it after a bunch of reviews and looking at stuff on Wirecutter and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, like it's the same price at Costco as buying that stupid thing at wherever I buy it from, Newegg or something. Yeah. And then I was like, well, then I can play video games.
Yeah, that honestly makes a lot of economical sense. I thought you might just consider getting like a Roku box or a Google Chromecast, which is like super cheap, but then you lose out on the ability to play not only games but also Blu-rays. So that's just like a super feature-rich option.
Makes sense. Then I have a singular box down there that will play DVDs,
4K,
Blu-rays.
4K Blu-ray?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, the Xbox does. It doesn't do Dolby Vision. I don't know if you know what Dolby Vision is, but you need to get the real expensive 4K ones that'll play in Dolby Vision, but whatever. But it still does the regular Dolby. But yes.
The good old regular Dolb.
Good old regular Dolb. So we were playing Hogwarts Legacy on there, and my daughter already downloaded Roblox and Roblox. Yep, she's playing that on there too. So
nice.
But then I looked, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a different video game. And I looked, I'm like, I don't care about any of these video games.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Only one that I would be interested in is Elden Ring, and I already have Elden Ring on my PC. So
there you go. Yeah, I feel like the gaming industry is a little interesting right now. I just watched an interesting video about Ubisoft, whatever it's called. And like
Ubistank.
Yeah, and basically. And like how many games they've been making recently, and like how they're all just like reskinned versions of the exact same game with like no actual changes other than like inundating the games with microtransactions. Dude, can you imagine spending $50 to $60 on a fucking game, and then like there's an option in the game to spend more money to get like more things in a single player AAA $50 game? Like, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude. It's the
this is the end times, bro.
It's the Elden Ring horse armor. Yeah. So this is the origin of it. Was way back, and this is like Xbox One era. This is probably 15 years ago now. It was a single player game. Elder Scrolls. I think it was Oblivion. Where they added in the ability to buyable armor for your horse. Right. And it didn't have any in-game effect, I don't think. I think it was just a visual thing that your mount would have armor. And that fucking thing sold like hotcakes. And that is what kicked everything off for people doing all the add-ons. And I get it, like they keep saying like the cost of making AAA games and all this shit is so expensive that it's like in order for them to be able to keep the studios and whatever. This is not a video game show, but like they justify it for all these ways.
Yeah.
But
and honestly, people have to vote with their dollars, and they're voting they want it. Like I looked at a breakdown of Ubisoft's financials, and they were like a $1 billion company, And then I think it was 2 years ago they released a financial report, and they made like 1.9 billion, and the other half of that in this new year was fucking microtransactions, player add-ons after the fact. And so it's a thing. You can't get rid of that. You know, you can't just take it away for vanity reasons.
Right. Like if you have a game that, if people that are really invested, it's going back to like capitalizing on your most invested player base or your consumers. Is they buy the game once for $60. They really love the game. They're really invested in what you do. How do you capitalize on that? Well, here's how. Here's how you can get more money out of the people that are supporting you. And there's a level of things that I think that's really good about that. And this can you could probably make parallel draws to miniatures and miniature board games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Board games too as well. Is to capitalize on the people that are most invested in your product to get them to spend more money. And that doesn't necessarily inherently have to be evil, because these people are gracious that the things exist and they would gladly spend money on them. But when it becomes the norm, especially when it has kind of in-game benefits, is where it gets really hairy in a multiplayer game especially. It's like, I can go out and I can buy this sniper rifle with my real dollary dues that I can fucking pull in some fools that they can't, they didn't spend the $40 on the sniper rifle, so they can't deal with me, kind of a thing. That's where it's like, that's where it really gets sketchy. Otherwise, it's kind of gambling.
Yeah. Pay to win is definitely a little hairy.
Yep. Which leads us to army painting.
We've both been doing quite a bit of army painting lately and are learning things about how we enjoy army painting and want to share some of those things with you.
Yeah, I feel like we've learned a lot. I think that like over the years since we've gotten into this, we've both, I think, painted enough armies or painted enough stuff for armies to really get a grasp of kind of our own groove, things we like, things we don't like. I think that's a big thing for a lot of us, is like, you don't do this a whole lot of times in your life, so you're hesitant because you don't want to screw it up. And you don't do it enough times to have a lot of learning experiences to grow off of, to kind of evolve, to find what works best for you. And so we just kind of wanted to chat on that, share those thoughts, and kind of maybe our direction going forward, knowing full well that our direction going forward will continue to evolve, which is one of the reasons why mini painting is so fucking awesome, because it's never stagnant. It's never just the same thing over and over again. There's always a new puzzle to solve, a new challenge, and that's every new model is different, or every new project is different, every new army is different. So it's kind of keeping it fresh while trying to learn off of the foundations of past things.
And that's a great place to start, actually, is making it what you want it to be, right? So I've just, every army that I paint, I feel like I'm spending more and more time just trying to figure out like what I want this army to look like and feel like before I start to turn it into like a recipe. Like when we made that video however many years ago where it was like, we're going to paint an army in a weekend, I like sat down and made a paint scheme so that I could apply it to an entire army, so I could paint it all at the same time. Having never tried that scheme out before, right? Which is fucking ridiculous. You need to do, which is what John's doing right here. You need to do small batch testing. You need to try out things, different products, different approaches, because you're going to find stuff that your ideas are not going to match up with what they look like in real life. You're going to be inefficient. You're going to find out ways to improve things during the process. And so there's just so much to gain from spending 3 hours painting a single model, So like the importance of small batch early on testing is crucial to figure out that you're spending the right amount of time you want to spend. Like the corners you're cutting aren't like making the model not look like good, like you want it to look. Like you need to do that in the beginning.
Yeah, I think there's a feel of like doing that is wasting time or wasting a model, or if the colors look good, they're going to look good. But even if you find a good color scheme, whether bought from a tool online or just going by what are the faction's colors, you'll find that in theory it works. In application, you learn a lot of things that now with this new formed information, you will tweak your approach, sometimes minor, sometimes major. Sometimes you'll scrap the whole thing and have to restart. But without that, you're really committing to a really potential feel-bad moment of kind of either frustration or like, yeah, it looks okay, but how much better could it have looked for the same amount of time you spent? You'll never know without having gone through a bit of that testing yourself. And so every time that I do this, the big thing for me that I walk away with is that I'm more confident. I'm more confident in what the final outcome is going to look like based on my tests, because I know that I will do things a little bit different. We also think that like once you've committed to something, this is my series of steps, these are my series of colors, these are how we're going to look, that you are now locked into that for the entire army, the entire 100 models. Please do not do that.
Yeah.
Be flexible and adapt. And as you tweak throughout the army, this one unit will not look 100% exactly like the next unit because of your evolution or because of your tweaks. They will still look close enough. And by the time you get through the rest of the models, it will look much better than if you'd have just stayed put. So the learning doesn't stop in the test models. The experimentation and the evolving of your painting style does not stop there, but it just gives you a lot higher jumping off point than you'd regularly have.
Yeah, because you're going to discover things that you are unwilling to do when you are suddenly painting 10 models at once as opposed to one model at once. Like a step that you thought was okay and necessary or worthwhile is suddenly going to become not worthwhile. Or you're going to find a better way to do it. Or you're going to find a way that a previous step could like give you a lift up to make this thing that you wanted to include easier to accomplish. I always come back to this phrase that you used a long time ago on the podcast called being proactive in the process, right? Having a turned on brain where you're like, okay, I don't like what I'm doing right now. It's not looking good right now. And just kind of being aware of what you're thinking and then actively trying to solve that while you're painting and trying things out and seeing if they make a difference. That's super important just to be turned on, like kind of, I mean, honestly, like all the time while you're painting, unless you're like doing something that you're very comfortable with, that is tried and true, that you've already experimented with. There's a bit of irony to this idea. People are afraid to get into army painting because they're unfamiliar with the process, right? It's a big, challenging thing. But at the same time, they don't want to do small batch testing because of the reasons you just mentioned, right? You're afraid you're going to have one fucking dangler who looks bizarre and like a clown, or a couple of them. But that really is necessary to give you the confidence you need to then paint more models in your army. You could just go for it. But in my experience, personally, it hasn't worked out. I've made progress on armies that I ended up regretting and ended up having to redo a lot of the stuff. So from my point of view, you need the small batch stuff.
And you're even maybe an outlier in that you're willing to go back and see that things weren't the way you wanted and repaint them. I know oftentimes I am just like, no, I did not like how that unit looks or whatever. And then I just like, I thought that's how they are forever.
Yeah, I get that though.
And then every time I play with them, I'm kind of like, oh, you guys can just hang over here on the side.
I almost sent you into combat first.
Yeah, you guys need to die first. The rest of the army looks cooler without you existing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so there's other couple things kind of related to batch painting that I wanted to bring up, because we often find that batch painting is the most efficient way. And so that is where you take one aspect of the model and you paint either an entire unit or oftentimes the entire army. You paint that part of it over across everything, and then you move on to the next thing. So for example, Space Marine armor, you paint all of their armor with a series of steps with an airbrush or with just a rattle can and then dry brushing and whatever your steps may be. And by the time you've completed all the steps, you're actually completing them all at the same time. So all 100 models of your army are basically all done simultaneously. And when that happens, you will have this realization of, oh, I really don't like how this works with this. Actually, the armor doesn't really look as vibrant or poppy once I have everything else painted as I thought it would. Now you've done your whole army and realize this. If you then say, these are my steps, these are how I think I want to approach it, let me paint one model like this to completion, and then let me see what I really feel about it, and even be willing to go back and tweak. And it's like, okay, maybe I go airbrush a bit of his shoulder pads and all the round things with a white ink, and then I put a a fluorescent blue through there as the final highlight. Man, that made it jump up a ton. And it was almost no extra work. Maybe it was one extra step. Maybe it was removing one of the steps and adding a different one. And it made a huge impact. You want to have those major impact things figured out before you start on the entire army.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I have been there. I have done, I think, 2 armies where I had no idea what they were going to look like finished until I finished the last step of the first model.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
OBR and the Night Lords?
The Night Lords was the big one. The Night Lords was, and I kind of feel bad about that because when I did the video where I said they sucked, I wanted to figure out how to improve them. I got a fair number of comments about the way they looked before was 10 times better than anything I've ever painted.
Yep.
And so on and so forth.
100% you're gonna get those comments.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I was so blind to that fact that it was like maybe I didn't approach the way I wrote certain things.
Yeah.
That was sensitive to that.
You weren't happy with it.
I wasn't happy with it.
Yeah.
And that was probably a better approach to take with it and it's about each of us is obviously on a different portion of their journey or whatever that looks like for you, but don't sell yourself short in what you could accomplish that doesn't require even necessarily a higher skill level than you're capable of, by just being curious and by just pushing yourself and pushing the way colors and saturation and vibrancy works. So I used myself as an example there, not for you to compare yourself to me, because there's more people than I can count that can paint armies way better than me too. So I'm not going to compare myself to them. I try not to, but it's still a learning process and not settling, right? There's a certain point where it's just like, well, yeah, there's not settling, John, but you're also telling me to spend 10 hours per rat. I'm like, no, I don't think maybe that's probably smart either. Unless you're playing a game like Warcry. I was like, fucking go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another important thing is to make sure that you're spending your time where it matters, which you alluded to with this rat thing. Certain details on your models really matter. And I think it's important at some point to time your paint job just to see, okay, I got 30 Dark Eldar Kabalite warriors in my army. How long does it take to paint one guy in this scheme that I'm developing? 3 hours? 2 hours? Okay, that's a fucking problem. It needs to be 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. Or maybe it doesn't need to be that.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's fine.
Maybe you can define for yourself what you want it to be, but it's really important that you figure that out, right? It's like some people have that fucking what's the word? The energy or the stamina to paint an heavy metal army. Is that everyone? Abso-fucking-lutely not. You need to identify the kind of person you are and the concessions you're willing to make and the quality level that you want to get, so that you can set realistic expectations and also paint plans for yourself. Because if you're like, I want to paint this Space Marine army like Heavy Metal Studio, and you're fucking 3 months into the hobby, that ain't gonna fucking happen. It's not gonna happen. I don't want to totally shut you down. Maybe it might happen. Maybe you're the fucking golden boy or golden girl. But that's really hard. You have to give yourself the opportunity to succeed. If you're set up for failure and you fail immediately, then you're just going to fucking peter out and never finish it, right? It's got to have something that you can actually bite onto and do and accomplish and see a done thing in front of you.
Mm. Yeah, I think the last thing you want is to have a realization that leads to frustration.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be, whether it's 5% or 75% through your project, when you have a realization that you're not happy with. So maybe that realization is this is going to take me 10 times longer to paint this whole army than I thought it was going to. Or I'm able to accomplish this in a reasonable amount of time, but I am not happy with the quality that time frame gets me. So you want to not have that realization. So what you want to do is you want to be like what you were talking about, Scott, is this is what the 30-minute version of this Kabalite Warrior looks like.
Yeah.
This is what the 2-hour version of the Kabalite Warrior looks like.
Yes.
Now, I have to do the math, and I have to look at the final product, and I have to then do the visualization in my head and run the numbers. This is how long it's going to take me to accomplish this. to get this version. This is the amount of time it's going to take me to get this version. And maybe there's multiple variables, multiple versions that you're dealing with. Or maybe you can say, I did A, I did B. I'm going to take these parts from A and these parts from B, so the time maybe be somewhere in the middle. And then you won't have a realization moment because you'll have gone into the project dealing with most of the variables. There's inevitably some that you can't take into account, and that's why it's fun and interesting, because it's not totally predictable. But you'll know, and then you won't be upset by realizing halfway downstream, that there's a waterfall up ahead, and I really did not want to go off the waterfall. So let yourself really realize what you're doing, and then you'll be more confident and be more willing to sit at the table, because I know this is going to take me 1 calendar year to complete this Space Marine army this way, painted to this level, based on the speed and my ability right now. And I have told myself I'm okay with that. I've also told myself that I need to paint one of these dudes a week if I'm going to get that done. So now you've done all the math and you can hold yourself accountable, and you get rewarded by knowing I'm willing to do all that because I'm so much happier with how that version of the army looks compared to the version I could have got done in 6 months instead of 12. And you're just setting yourself up for feeling good at the end of the process as opposed to not.
Yeah. Having that 30-minute Cabalite Warrior in front of you allows you to look at it and be like, I'm not happy with this, or I am happy with this, and then move forward with confidence. And you should base that guy. Paint that fucking base rim black. Finish it completely, and then make that choice. Here's a question for you. Are you a proponent for painting the full army at once or painting unit by unit?
When I started, how I've done armies in the past, oh God, fuck, I forgot I painted that whole AdMech army. You remember that thing?
I feel like that's what you do all the time.
Fuck,
right?
Me. I do everything in batch painted. It's for most efficiency. I don't think that's fun. I think if you think that's fun,
you're a commission painter.
You're a commission painter, or you're perfectly fine working 40 years on an assembly line, your whole life. It's a struggle for me. So going forward, and I've never painted. Well, I take that back. I have not finished my my Death Army, my Soulblight Gravelord's army, but that I painted all unit by unit, and everything that I've completed has been painted unit by unit or hero by hero. Part of the reason that faction always appealed to me was there was a lot of variation in the things. Like, I'm not going to do a batch paint where it includes skeletons and direwolves and blood knights. Yeah. Like, they're so different. I'm forced to do unit by unit. But you're giving yourself small victories, and you can see that the finish line from the starting point for that one step. And you're constantly allowing yourself to get these endorphins. And if you're playing with the army as you're going through this painting process, every so often you're having another new fully painted thing. So you kind of get to see it roll out. I mean, how many times you see at the local game store where the dude's Dark Angel army is just all dark green. And then a month later I go back there and it's all dark green and the guns are all silver. And that's not bad. I mean, you're making progress, and that I don't want to downplay that.
No.
But there's one unit of Dark Angel Terminators that were all done and they were badass. Then, even as an opponent or someone's going in, or even me playing that army, it's easier for me to envision how cool that looks and how cool it's going to look as each thing gets done.
Sure.
I want to be able to take a little bit more of my time and not feel so rushed. And I feel like I'm more mentally capable of doing that when it's one unit at a time.
I can't agree more. I really enjoy just painting it one unit at a time, because you mentioned that thing about the Soulblight, and that's totally true. Every single fucking unit, there were some things that I could share details, like the red armor of the skeletons, or their capes, and the red armor of my vampire infantry. But there's so many different things on those guys, and they require a reorganization of the steps, or rethinking about what products I'm going to use and all this stuff. And so that made it a lot easier to kind of make them more palatable and easier to accomplish.
Yeah. Now, you recently finished or having a fully playable army for A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
And you approached that faction or unit by unit, right? And then heroes separately, or kind of you did a unit that was part of a a group?
I think I did like a colored zenithal undercoat for the entire army, and then I tackled each unit by unit. And that was the first time where I painted a whole army, and I personally, learning from your mistakes, wasn't super happy with the outcome. And it wasn't like, oh my God, these are awful. Like they're like 10% lower than what I want them to be. But I wouldn't have known that until I tried it out and then known that I should go a little bit harder. Also, there was an impending deadline. I had to get shit done for that video.
Yeah.
And so that was also a contributing factor. But now I know, and now I can like paint a future A Song of Ice and Fire army or a future Warhammer army or for whatever game you want to talk about. And now I know, like, okay, if I'm going to approach the scheme in a similar way, I need to kind of like pump the jams a little bit more on like this big detail on the model. It just looks like more beautiful. Which, like, I love that. Like, I love learning from my experiences. And like as a whole army, they look fucking banging. I think their bases are a little bit like kind of whatever, but
The faces are unique, and they're not like uninspired though.
Oh yeah, the movement trays kind of feel a little lame.
That's just
the bases are cool though.
That's just because it's a shitty game.
Oh no, dude,
Fucking movement trays, bro.
dude, I love movement trays.
The Lord gave me feet. I don't need to be set in a box.
Put me on a plate.
Well, man, that's a pretty fucking sweet Halloween costume idea. Where it's just, you know, like in The Office, it was 3-hole punch Jim and stuff, where like you did the least possible effort to make a Halloween costume. What if you just had like a big plastic circle, but you don't dress up at all, and it's just Space Marine Steve, and you're just like one of your feet is stuck to the fucking thing, so you're just like, no, it's just me, but I'm a Space Marine.
Dude, there's a basic. You know, so I made those first 10 videos that go over like the basic skills, and in the basing video, that's a bit that I had where I taped a cardboard square to my feet, and I like hopped onto the frame with this fucking cardboard thing. It's like, yeah, the Lord gave me feet.
Oh man, remember when we were young kids full of energy, and we did so much stuff for a 8-second bit in the middle of a video?
And
oh man, I mean, sometimes I get that, and I'm just like, I go with it, but it's so much fucking work for that fucking 4 seconds of you hopping across.
Yeah, dude.
Dude.
Yeah, nah. There's things I could talk about right now, but I don't want to get into it.
How much food coloring did you have to put into a bathtub to make it look green?
You know, a shocking amount, dude. It was like, it did not look green. Like, because there's so much fucking water, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I think I emptied a whole ass fucking bottle in that thing just to get it to look like that.
Did it stain your bathtub?
No.
Oh man, because that would have been funny.
Yeah, that would.
You drain it down, you're like, oh no.
Oh god. Yeah, it's like just kind of like mossy looking. Yeah, that'd been awful.
It's food. If it's consumable grade product, you're probably okay.
Yeah, you could probably use some like some higher grade cleaner and get rid of it. It's a bathtub, you know. That stuff's hardcore.
Yeah. Okay. It's not like you like sprayed like, oh, this is a pretty sweet bright green, and I'm just spraying aerosol can into my bathtub filled with water and then mix it up.
That would have been an idea. You just paint the tub green and then fill it up with water. Then it just looks like green water.
Forever you have this.
Yeah, Amber, you cool with this? Yeah. That's a fucking spray paint.
This is a long-term commitment, hon.
Green tub.
Look, I may have to come back and do another video that uses this. This will save me so much time in the long run.
Yeah. See, there you go. That's all. See, when you make the entire video about the bit, then it's easier to do. Right?
That's right. Yeah, you're committing to it, which we can lead right back into the main topic. So I did want to ask you, we talked a little bit more like high level stuff. I did want to talk a little bit more high level, but then I want to dig into some more specifics. So I want to put a pin in and maybe get you to think, if you haven't been thinking yet. When you said that you have like 10% or 15% or whatever it was more you would have liked from that Song of Ice and Fire army. I want some specifics as well as you can get them. But before that I want to talk briefly about the spectrum, because we're all on the spectrum, and that spectrum is army painting speed versus quality.
Why are you laughing? I thought I was going to go into the ball sack.
I made a joke about we're all on the spectrum. Maybe it was a little tone deaf, but I'm sure we'll hear about it in the comments.
Probably.
So he's making them at night. I don't know if anyone's going to get that joke reference or not. So speed and quality. And so here's the thing, is that YouTube isn't helping us in this either.
No.
And what it's doing is, and I'm as much to blame as anybody on the internet for this, is this stereotype that if you're going to paint an army, you need to paint it as fast as possible, right? And the only reason it's taking you a year to paint an army is because you're doing something wrong. And in the YouTube videos of painting an army in a week or painting an army in a weekend or 24 hours, whatever the self-imposed restriction, which is also a part of the YouTube algorithm and why it works, is these self-imposed challenges that creators do. If you look outside of miniature painting about any fucking topic on the world, on the internet, these self-imposed challenges that no normal human being would do are what we like to watch. So when we're doing this for a weekend to paint an army, it's not that we're doing it because you're supposed to do it too, and if you don't, it's because you're doing something wrong. It's taking you that long. So that is all about the far end of the spectrum of speed. The other side of the spectrum is quality. But what I'm trying to say is that you need to, as part of like doing this experimentation and doing your test models and envisioning where you are in the hobby, what you get most out of the hobby and what you'd like to get out of the hobby, is somewhere on that spectrum. Where does your army fall between quality and speed based on what you want? It's not about what your opponent wants. It's not about what's best to bring it for a tournament. It's not about how long it takes you. It's about what is going to give you the most satisfaction, is you're going to enjoy the most. For some people, that is strictly painting it as fast as humanly fucking possible because they are hardcore gamers and they play 3 games of 40K a week. And the quicker they get it done, they're going to play 100 games of 40K this year. And they have a decently painted, all painted, more importantly, army on the table for those 100 games. That is a really high value thing for them. I am not that way. I want my army to look badass in my display cabinet at home. When I play it 3 games in the next year, I want it to feel more like epic and thematic and really feel like I'm enjoying the process. I'm smiling as I'm playing because my army looks cool. It's aiding in my gaming experience. I also don't have all the free time in the world to go to the other side of the spectrum and paint it purely for quality. In theory, we're the people that are most likely to be able to do that because we could do that for a job. And maybe once or twice a month, we have another video of painting another unit in that army, and eventually we get it all done. That's an awesome thing in theory. I don't think the algorithm would agree with us that that's a good project either.
I think
maybe it would be.
I think, there are always going to be people, when you say something like that are going to say, I do want to see that.
I do want to see that.
And we do understand that. But it's the kind of thing where it's just difficult to have an ongoing series that people feel tuned into and interested in, say when they've missed the first episode or the second episode. Or the other thing is maybe you're re-showing stuff. Maybe you're just redoing things the same way on new models. And after like 2 or 3 of those, it can just feel a little boring.
I get it, John.
Yeah, same color, whatever. This is the same process. We're not learning anything new. So, someone could do that, and that could work. It requires maybe a little bit of a unique spin on the idea.
Right. But for all the goody peepees out there, you're working 40 plus hours a week. You maybe got a family. You maybe got a doggo. You maybe got to mow the lawn. You got to do these things. And painting to the best of your possible ability for an entire army is kind of batshit crazy.
It's hard. It's very hard.
And it's very, like, everything. I'm a firm believer that you can do anything you can put your mind to, and you could do that. There's a lot of things in life you could do if you prioritize it. If it's a priority in your life to play 100 games of Warhammer this year, you absolutely can do it. You're going to have to deprioritize other things in your life to make that happen.
That's the hard part.
So if you're willing to push some shit down the steps so you can put this one higher up, you can do that. But it's all about that balance. So finding where you are in the spectrum. And again, that's going back to not setting yourself up for moments of realization that let you down, is having that honest conversation with yourself before you start the project of this. Just visualize the spectrum of speed and quality and where you want to be. And you don't have to have it pinpoint accurate, but which kind of quadrant do you fall in? And then you can make future decisions based on that. And while you're in the moment in painting, you can be reinforced by, it's okay if I'm spending a lot of time painting the skin on these. I want the quality to be high enough. vice versa. I'm taking way too much time doing all of these cloaks. It's not the main thing. I do want to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. It'll help you decision make in the moment. It'll help you in your planning steps. So I wanted to reinforce that before we got into specifics.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's an important thing. It's really important. Everyone's going to be different. You can't let a YouTuber tell you like how long you're going to be okay with spending time on a model.
I've been farting so much this episode.
I heard that and I ignored it.
There was so many of them prior. I kept doing them. It's kind of like in that movie Enemy at the Gates, where he waits till the bombs are dropping, and then the sniper shoots each SS soldier in the head right as the bomb dropped. So then the other Nazis don't know that the other dude has gotten shot. And that's just what I did whenever you were talking with farts. Wait, when you were in the middle of a sentence.
Oh my god, dude! Do you know what a 4chan green text is? Does that string of words mean anything to you?
No.
All right, so it's like this format. This is related to what you just said. It's this format where it's like you see a greater than sign, and it's like be me, be 15, be in college class, need to fart, want to mask fart. You know this story?
I don't know the story, but I'm visualizing it. It's like coding language.
Yeah. So it's like explaining a situation, like kind of setting it up.
Yep.
And the premise is this guy wanted to fart in college, in a college class, and he wanted to mask the fart by dropping a bunch of books. And you see where this is going. He fucking drops the books
and then
mistimes it, draws all the attention to himself.
And then he farts.
And then fucking shits his pants. And then everyone's just like what, bro? It's like, to this day, my favorite green text. It's so funny. The way it's written is hilarious. But yeah, it's that reminded me of that. Okay, so my issue with my Greyjoy and what I would do to fix them is they just feel a little blobby. So I tried to use the airbrush on as many parts of the model as I could. I tried to like break it up into like thirds and halves and front side and back side, so I could like try to go through it really quickly. And what ended up happening is the airbrush, really softly defines a lot of things. We're dealing with miniatures that have really tiny volumes. And what I need to do is some trademarked little John Nina scratchy highlights on some of those sharp edges, those high shoulder details, high back details, high chest, just to define the scale mail, define the motion and the cape and the hood and all, because they kind of got some gobbledygook, and they just need little pop, pop, pop. They just need little defining highlights so that you can look at that thing across the table and be like, oh, that's a belt. That's like his quiver. I get it. I understand everything. I think that's what I need to do with the last 10%.
That's one of those things that I think most often, sometimes you can identify that yourself. You obviously can, but also that like you've been surrounded by, have painted yourself to a high level that does that kind of stuff. You see it in display cases. You look at other people's amazing work. You're pretty engrossed in miniature painting and can identify that. Oftentimes, people say, oh, this model doesn't exactly look right, or this army, it's like my army doesn't look as good as I want. And it's exactly that. It's not being willing to push another 10% brighter, another 10% lighter, another pushing the highlights further than what this gray cloak should actually look like, and being willing to do that just for the sake of defining shapes on a tiny, tiny thing. It's not something that would make sense if this model was true scale or 1-to-1 scale and it was a rat this big. Painting it exactly like that would look derpy at that scale. The larger the model is, the more like softly defined things need to be to look more realistic. At this scale, you just can't do that. You'll just lose it all, Even if you painted them in all primary colors where there's a bright yellow right next to a bright blue, right next to a bright red, it still wouldn't, because within that all blue part, you can't see the ripples of the fabric. You can't see the collar of the shirt. You can't, because you need to really make that a brighter sky blue to help your eye recognize it. And so I'm curious. I was curious about what you were saying, because I think from a color perspective, your armor works really, really well.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
And so that's, I was like, oh, I hope you're not going to say that. But no. Yeah, defining of shapes, and even on things that aren't edges. So it's one of the things where I really why I've enjoyed painting skin and flesh more, and I feel like I've gotten better at it, is learning how to use that approach but not on shapes that have defined edges.
Yeah, they're soft. Yeah.
Yeah. So really being able to push the forehead, but not the entire forehead. And then as that runs down the bridge of the nose, and then that top cheek line, and then that weird little crease in your lip that Scott knows the name of. He's going to say right now.
I can't fucking remember the muscles. They have insane names.
Yeah.
Oh, nasal labial fold.
Got it.
That's what it is.
Got it. Yes. But that is like you draw a highlight, not a shadow, a highlight running from inside of your nostril all the way down. You drew that one pure peach line right there, and it's like, boosh. It just does so much. So it's kind of a sculpting with paint thing.
Yeah,
This is next level shit. Yeah. But you don't need to do next level shit to really push your army as a whole to that next level. Is defining all the shapes as they're sculpted on the model is the very first thing. Once you get the hang of that, you'll be able to start experimenting or pushing or identifying where people have used the techniques that you're now using in a more complex way, and you can just copy pasta, baby. You can start implementing those yourself, because I saw them use that nasal labial fold, highlight, shook. I do that. I'm like, oh man, it looks so much better. Those kinds of things. You can start implementing them just little bite by little bite once you've figured out that. That's it. Edge highlighting is a time-consuming thing.
Yeah. So you just do little messy ones.
Just do little messy ones. It doesn't have to be the heavy metal, the exact 1/2 millimeter thickness run across that entire lip of that cloak.
Yeah.
You know,
Space
and even
Marines.
using that to highlight volumes too. I'll do that a lot with scratchiness.
Yeah.
You can see it like on the front of this guy's
I know.
knee.
I know. It's one of your signature moves.
Yeah. It's like, I ain't got no fucking time to blend. That's what's great about wet blending is you get 70% of the way there with the blend.
Yeah.
And then over the top, you can just do the little scratchies.
And then it kind of like maybe hides some, maybe like it was fully opaque or wasn't totally flawless. It doesn't matter anymore because you're kind of hiding it a little bit.
Yeah, you're just creating a visual, static.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't realize like maybe I should have gone a little bit further with my army is this thing that happens. I don't know if this ever happens to you. It's like you're sitting there. I have these two giant Intelitech lights. Everything is, I'm living in the fucking sun, right?
Right.
And then I go play at a game store with their shitty CFL top-down lighting, and it's like, oh, this kind of looks not very impressive anymore. I think you need to push it a little bit further, right?
Yeah. That leads to what my thought was. Looking back at my armies and looking at one of my goals for this, and it's not really apparent in these three. Maybe I should have practiced it more. It was part of a realization I came to as part of this rat painting process was, you're talking about pushing edge highlights and to define shapes. I think I need to do a better job of punching the fuck out of the vibrancy of color. And that goes exactly to what you're saying is I've been trying to do a better job through my process of painting models of I will spin my chair 180 so my back is to all the lights and I look at the model under the light of the room. So don't be afraid to take your models into a more realistic place setting lighting situation and reevaluate there. There you'll find a lot of your flaws, and your flaws are often going to be exactly what we're talking about of things just meld together. Things are not vibrant enough. The colors are not punchy enough. The edge highlights are not bright enough, so you kind of lose them, and they're not as well defined because of that. And so, like, I did a video where I painted some of the new Space Marine Terminators, and I used a bunch of the golden soul flat, which is that red violet is a golden soul flat color.
On the base, that's red violet?
It's red violet.
Okay.
Yep. From golden soul flat. So I used a couple different variation mixes for the shadow, the midtone, and then a white ink, and then a highlight with a fluorescent blue over top of that white ink to do it. And those dudes, they're sitting over in an IKEA cabinet, that unit of 5 Terminators I don't typically have the light on. And every time I walk by there, I can't not see them. They're just like so fucking blue. They're so fucking good. And I'm like, I didn't go into that project thinking about it that way. I didn't even realize that having written and done the video. It was not till after the fact. I'm like, something I did here really fucking worked, and I want more of my models to work that way.
Yeah.
I want more punchy vibrancy in a main tone that draws my eye to it in a dimly lit room.
I want to talk about that right now because you said something and then I quick scanned these models again and then I realized something about the way that you painted these that's very different than how I would approach them. So you painted every single one of these dudes, other than maybe the middle one here, with neutral tones, right?
Yeah.
Blacks, grays, creams, desaturated greens, whatever it may be. You didn't paint them like sports teams where it's like this shroud, that could have been the red violet.
Yeah.
You know? But instead you made it a shadow. Was that a conscious decision you made while thinking, I want vibrancy, but I don't want to get it in this way?
Yeah, I didn't think about vibrancy enough. Actually, the only time I really thought about vibrancy in here is I often revert to a logical choice, a realistic thing. What is this faction? What is their thing? What kind of things would they wear? They're fucking rats that are wearing dirty ass sewer clothes, right?
Yeah.
They ain't gonna be neon yellow, but maybe they should be
Dirty neon yellow, maybe?
right. And I realized it when I finished this dude, the dude with the plume of smoke, that his overshawl, while I really like that it's like a yellow
It's nice.
ochre,
Yeah.
whatever, that should have been a more vibrant tone.
Okay.
Yep. Because we have some vibrancy in that plume, but when we're sitting at the table, I'm not going to see that as much as I would really see that overshroud cloak. It's taking up a lot of space there. That should be more punchy and vibrant in some capacity. And that's not to say clean. That's not to say not weathered. That's not to say not grungy. But you got to start from a point of screaming color. And you can always manipulate it from there. And maybe that's part of your testing for your color schemes.
Yes.
Of how you can manipulate it once you place it. But it's so much harder to start from a place of desaturation and build up.
Yes.
It's so much easier to go from let me just find the most screaming color I can and then manipulate it afterwards.
Right. And here's the cool thing. You maybe say you identified, hey, I like that red violet color and I like how it looks in this model. Let's say you paint another rat and you make one of his fabric, clothing, whatever things, that color. Like those two will go together beautifully, and they're not painted the same way, but they will feel like they belong in the same faction together.
Yep.
So that's a huge thing too. I want to see that. I want to see a fucking neon green shawl. That sounds insane. That might be too much.
No, I think it's totally possible. I think that's screaming green. You know, they love that warpstone. Maybe they make warpstone fabric.
Oh, they like weave it into the fabric.
Yeah, dude. I got a whole fucking background lore on these rats.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, they're warpstone weavers. So taking some of that, applying to your Drukhari army. Is there anything from the things we've just talked about that you're either implementing on this army that you've learned from prior ones, or even things that are making you think about how you're going to evolve the painting of this army as you go?
Yeah. I feel like I started the scheme in a place however many years ago, over 10 years ago, that I'm not really a fan of nowadays. And so I'm trying to like change the scheme, but let those dudes exist in my army and not feel awkward. And the way that I'm hoping to do that is by using it as an accent color, the yellow, and not a main color anymore, which I actually really like. So I kind of want to offer that up to the goody PPs if they're in a similar situation where like they've kind of like invested in an army that they've kind of been disillusioned by and want to change things up but not redo everything. I think that's a great way you can do that. Like there are so many details on a model that people just look at and think, oh, those should all be the same color. But like at really any mechanical point, you can just change whatever color you want it to be within reason. Obviously, you don't want like a fucking clown car. But that for me was a great way to let this scheme live with my other scheme without having to redo everything. Because who wants to do that? That'd be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, I put a challenge to the goody PPs, and that is the next model you paint. When you get to the bullshit parts, the belts, the patches, the fucking boots, the whatever, don't go back to your wall of paints. Just whatever colors are already on your palette that you already have out, mix those together. You'll get some kind of a neutral and use that for those. And you'll realize how little that fucking matters. You know, like if you go really punchy with it, or if your point is some certain details, their goal is to be really punchy to define maybe the darker, the more neutrals around them. That's a different thing. But oftentimes we're we're trying to build in the punch in our main colors, those other things kind of don't matter. So like making sure that all those match up is kind of universally not all that important. I think it's different for what you got there though. Like I think you're living on the color punch from the teal in small sections, the teal and the yellow, because without that, they're just kind of cream dudes.
Yeah,
right.
Cream dudes.
It's just real creamy dudes.
I feel like also a brighter color also has a punch, but in a value sense, like it's just brighter.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to do like I did very sparing edge highlights on this because the bright color in my oil wash just did so much work for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't need to invest as much in that world as you would in say like black armor or something like that.
That's very true. That's a good way to keep the speed level higher.
Yeah.
By not having to do that extra step.
And maybe that's the thing. It's like just using a brighter color in general is just going to read more.
Right. Yeah. I think so too. I think I often fall into that, and I see that and looking at some of my models here on the table is like I go darker than I need to. I don't know how often I end up, and for some reason this same point resonates with me multiple times a year, and it's almost always when I look at Darren Latham's work. He starts at such a light or a bright point as a midtone on so many surfaces.
He may even prime his models white.
Like there's just so like no matter what the thing is, like even if it ends up being more of a middle tone in the range of spectrum of the whole model, he starts so much brighter and then is able to manipulate it back. But it's so much harder to go brighter when you're starting from a darker spot. You see that of people that want to paint from shadows first, and I do that often too. Like you've got to really have a keen understanding and know when a paint comes to full opacity over a dark or a black to really build that in. And you really need to understand light and volumes and all those things to paint that way. At least I think so, to make it look as good and as punchy. But yeah, it's just like, oh man, it's the same way when you look at people that do a full white prime and then they put contrast over and then do maybe some levels of building up after that, because it's so bright and so punchy. Like it just stands out more. I'm not advocating for just contrast painting your whole army, although there are some ways to do that. And I did have a fucking moment with these things where I'm like, I'm just so fucking dumb. Like I should have known, and I did know, but I just never put two and two together. Just use contrast paint on the tiny bullshit details.
Yeah.
Those shits don't matter. And as long as you use a white zenithal from above, like you put your time in, like on this rat here, like the tassels on his swords, and then like the handy holdy points on his swords, some other little details. It's just one coat of contrast paint because I put in the time in the other things that make the most impact. Those things don't matter. Why waste a bunch of time on them? Mm-hmm. Like tiny details, just fucking contrast paint.
It's a great opportunity for contrast paint for sure. Yeah.
Did we do it? Did we just allow everyone to paint their own army
the way they want to, in the time they want?
It's perfect army the way in exactly the amount of time that they want to spend on it.
It's going to end up exactly how they imagine it in their heads.
It's a fucking long project.
It is. It's hard.
Is a reason why it's talked about so much, and there's videos on it, and that you don't see a whole lot of them out in the wild. It's because it's not even so much that it's hard. It's a commitment. It is a time commitment.
How many armies that you've come across in your local game store are fully painted that like played in your AOS escalation league or otherwise?
Maybe 25%.
Yeah,
but a lot of them are in this like, I mean, they got colors on them, but you're like, is that done? And they also kind of sometimes will feel bad asking. Like, I don't want to ask.
No, yeah, you don't ask that question.
Yeah, is it done? But like,
you just say, "Oh, that looks sick." You're trying to bait out it's not done yet.
Yeah, we have a pretty big 40K group, and then I'll go to their tournaments and I'll do the army painting judging. And over the last 2 years that I've been doing that, the amount of people that have gone from like their stuff has got a minimum 3 colors, I can tell the color scheme of what they're going with, from that to 100% complete has gone up noticeably.
Oh, okay.
And I think having an active community is a big part of that. You know, people will put more of a priority on something if they know it's getting utilized more. But it's still, it's not a lot. Unless you're going to like a big convention where people are willing to take time and days off of work and money for travel and hotels and stuff. Those are the people that are going to have the painted armies.
Yeah.
You know,
people that require it for the tournament.
yeah. There's rules. How about you? You see a lot either in your Necromunda and your...
In Necromunda, we're pretty much all fully painted.
So much more bite-sized.
Yeah, definitely. But, you know, I whenever I go to a new state, I always go to a game store in the state. And, you know, I go to the Source all the time. And, yeah, I think a quarter is probably right. I think when we were playing A Song of Ice and Fire, there was a number, maybe like 30% or 40% that were painted fully. I don't know why that particular game. But otherwise, yeah, it's a bunch of gray, a bunch of primed, a bunch of, you know, I've dabbled, but am 10% done kind of stuff. It's a fucking hard thing to do. And it feels amazing to finish it. There's a, you know, it's like painting a display piece that takes 100 hours, you know. Hard stuff is hard for a reason, but it also is an incredible feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah, that is true of all things in life. Yeah, I think having it connected to something like a slow grow campaign, something like a league, something like that does so much.
Yeah, you're in it together.
Yeah, it's like you have other people and you can maybe have a Discord chat going, or you have like communications. You have regular games, so you get to see other people, not also your opponent, but maybe other people are playing that same day too. Or like it's a part of the conversation to what your communal kind of gathering is also included in that hobby, and that's a good incentive. It's a good thing to keep you pushing.
A little competitive as well. If your friend's sending you more whips than you're sending him, it's like, okay, I gotta fucking buckle down here and try to keep up. That can also be a good motivating force as well.
Yeah, just using spite to fuel you.
All right, that'd be the end of the main topic for us, and we don't have a news section anymore, so we're going to get right into the after party. See you for the outro. Welcome to the end of the podcast. We're just talking shit on no one, on ourselves, really.
We came to the realization that we only play games to win. This is under the umbrella of talking about, you know, in the after party, we talk about something new we've tried, and I was talking about figuring out stuff for my specific Skaven army, and then I got into this frustration about Spearhead, and, you know, it's a smaller game. I could paint less models for that to get a good start, but then the models are probably going to suck in the game, and then I won't be able to have a good competitive army, so I don't give a shit about that. We have to win. Here's
a question for the Giddy Peepees. Have you ever become tired of winning? You know, was there ever a point where you're like, man, I don't need this anymore? Because we haven't found that point yet.
No, I don't think it exists. The only thing I could think of would be like, if you're like, there's always the like, my dice were hot and your dice were bad, and I only won because I had good dice, you had bad dice.
Yeah, I feel like it literally comes up in 80% of the games.
Yes, it does.
Where it's like, oh, my dice weren't hot, or your dice were hot, or like they're pitying you, and they're like, oh, your dice weren't that great. And it's like, dude, like, if we sat down and we tallied up all the fucking results for all of our rolls, we'd be astonished at how average it was. You know, that's like, I feel like that's always the case.
Yes, it's deflection. It's deflecting from, it's especially men. Like, we deflect blame. We deflect blame so much. And that's not to say that it's just like, oh, you're a bad person or whatever, but it's also like, no, like, the dice, of the times that people complain it's the dice, at least 80% of the times, it has nothing to do with the dice. It was you picked the wrong units. You didn't use your stratagems correctly. You didn't handle the movement phase and do the things right. You didn't pick your points for fighting correctly. You didn't use your command points correctly.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're just in a bad matchup too. Like, some things just deal better with things than others. So like, that's also, so many things contribute to like the outcome of a game. Dice is like 5-10% of that outcome.
Right.
So.
And it's the point of variable, which is why it's a game, so it's not a determined outcome before you even sit down and play, so you never play. So you need to have that in there. But, you know, how well do you know how good your opponent's army is? How well do you know what he's trying to accomplish? How well do you know which units of theirs are there really ones you should be scared of? Which ones are there weak points? What is he? How does, you know, those kinds of things. It's like, No, he rolled more sixes than me.
Yeah.
I didn't get to roll enough sixes, and that's why I lose.
Yeah.
There's a guy in our meta. I used to work with this dude. I didn't even know he played Warhammer back when I worked with him. And he is the guy. He is literally every single game. He talks about dice the whole game. And we have people. Well, there's like a lot of local 40K dudes that just won't play him anymore.
100%. I would never play that person.
It's just not fun.
And that's the other thing is you add on the fact that every single person who plays a miniature war game is a socially incapable fucking awkward nerd. I love you guys, but that's, I'm a little bit of that as well. And like they're all in their own head, worried about their own experience, not realizing that there's someone across the table from them also trying to have a good time, being brought down by you fucking bringing up dice all the fucking time or the outcome or what's going on. It's like, dude, that's not the only thing that matters right now.
What matters
is that I win.
The sooner we get on the same page on that, the sooner we can move forward and really enjoy this.
We're gonna put out an application for Wargaming punching bag for just someone just to lose to us. If you're down for that, let us know.
Yeah, it happens all the time in like professional sports. You hear about it a lot in boxing. I don't know. How real it is. Like, you need a fall guy, right?
Yeah.
We need a fall guy, but we also need that fall guy to not like make it obvious.
Yeah, you can't let anyone know.
And to do it for free.
Yeah, you need to try a lot, but then come up short every single time.
Yeah, you need to learn how to palm dice so you accidentally tip over your sixes into ones. Yeah. That's all we need from you.
Right.
That's really, that I'd love every game. It would just be so much better. But like, it only works if I know that I'm I feel like I'm actually better and I'll strategize.
I'll trick you. I won't let you know when I hire this person.
Yeah.
It won't become obvious. So you'll feel like you're dominating. And then suddenly 6 months down the line, you'll be like, I've won 15 of 15 games against Bobby. Yeah. What's going on here?
I'm gonna enter this world's best Warhammer tournament. And I show up.
Let's go 0-5. Oh my god, dude! The world comes crashing down.
I don't know. Is Bobby here today? I was hoping I'd get paired against Bobby.
I had Bobby round 1. What the fuck?
Yeah. God damn, this game's actually a lot harder when I'm not playing him. Oh man. All right. Well, glad you guys can join us for this educational talk on how to win at Warhammer and why painting your army really well makes it more fun to do.
Right. Yeah. That's an important part of actually one thing we learned about army painting is that after you spend all this time painting this beautiful army, you have to find someone who's willing to lose to you to make it feel worth it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But like they have to also have their army painted, obviously, but like not nearly as good as yours.
Just be more emotionally like put together than you are, and they can handle the losing.
Yeah. I think like we could write a self-help book. That's the end of that sentence, really.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, sure. I agree with that.
Yeah. Why winning just comes down to find someone willing to lose.
If you
by Scott and John.
Oh my God.
Scott, if people wanted to support this dumbass podcast and help us keep making it, how could they do that?
The best ways, a good old Patreon down in the description below. You get access to an extended episode where we chat about extra details for about 20 to 30 minutes, things like new hobby tricks we've tried out and failed at, like in my case, this past week. I talk about things like giving feedback to some of our patrons, sharing models from other painters that we really like. You can also watch the podcast on YouTube with ads whitelisted. We play an ad every 30 minutes. You can also share the podcast with your nerd friends. Give it a review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts. And yeah, that's about it. Oh, also, check out the Teespring down in the description. We have merch on sale there. A variety of merch, t-shirts, hoodies, joggers, all kinds of stuff. Those are all great ways to support the podcast.
Yeah, there's a way to bring us home on a high note.
That anchor, that sales pitch anchor,
Yeah, for the goody peepees, this is the first time for a number of episodes, a couple episodes now, where we haven't had a guest.
I know, yeah.
We had Don Henley, and then we had
Don Haney,
Jeremiah from Canada.
I can actually see you now.
Yeah, I know. It's
kind of
nice.
like blocking.
No, and I kind of feel bad for them because they have got to have a head on a swivel because they got to go back and forth, back and forth.
It's tough.
We'll figure it out. But I don't think it impedes the fun that we have, or how much Don Haney hates Games Workshop. But but we've all learned about that. But we're gonna be back again in 2 weeks. And my voice got real high. to end the podcast because I'm really excited to eat some chicken. And until then, we will catch you on the
Flippity flop.